Ovtavia. If you guys haven't seen this actual series before from Hell. Can you please make part 2? Can you make part 2? I can't wait for part 2. We need part 2. I have heard all of your comments in the comment section, and here is what would happen if Izuku Midoriya met Octavia, Chapter 2. Sorry for the wait, I should have uploaded part 2. Not to bore you with an excuse that I would rather pull out my ass, that they would actually tell their fans. Say why I haven't been uploading. I have had my channel blocked, I've had it striked twice, and I had to delete a bunch of videos. But that's still not an excuse waiting a year to try and get this part up. I should have uploaded it sooner before that happened. So I do apologize for the wait. And here is the second part. I hope you all enjoy this video. Okay, we're going to change things off just a tad bit, but it's not going to be too noticeable. If I can be honest, I can't remember what happened in the last part. I went to go rewatch it, couldn't make head or tails of it. So, I'm going to start off with something where I could remember where we finished off at. Helvia! Izuku shouted as he threw himself forward into the fray. As Izuku jumped in front of Octavia to shield her from the up-and-coming attack. As the attack never came. As the person who was attacking them stopped immediately the moment he jumped in front of her. Kid, what the fuck are you doing? The man shouted. What do you think I'm doing? I'm protecting my friend from you. You were going to kill her just because she looked like a villain, Izuku said. As he was about to push Izuku out of the way, until they heard a shout. Ha ha ha! What do you think you're doing, hero? All Might. All Might? Izuku said, as he jumped down, landing a furious crud onto the floor. As Izuku finally got up onto both of his feet, to see All Might in his full glory, to see him there, all shocking and bright, as All Might ran over to the two kids in front of him, and lent a hand to them. As All Might lent his hand out, Izuku grabbed it, same with Octavia, as they both were in shock at the moment that the number one hero, All Might, was in front of them. As Izuku and Octavia didn't know what to say or do in that moment, instead of stuttering on their words, and just wide-eyeing that their hero of heroes saved them. You alright, kids? All Might said, as his hand returned back into his original hero pose. We're okay, All Might, but that guy over there is running, as All Might turned his head, as he speed blitzed, grabbing the guy by the back of the neck, pulling him back. As for you, sir, you have seemed to be bullying these very nice people. What do you say? All Might said, pushing the guy further to the floor to put him on the hands and knees. I'm not sorry, the man said, as All Might grabbed him and pushed him to the corner. You listen here, you piece of shit. That all you've done today is a form of quirk discrimination and bullying. I would expect you to say sorry before the media gets a little sniff of this, as you lose your license and the rest of your funding goes to the Quirk Discrimination Foundation. How would you like that? The number one hero founds Quirk Discrimination person on... What's your quirk again, sir? All Might said. Oh, mine's an owl, and I'm quirkless, Izuku said. Oh, that makes it even 10 times worse then. You're discriminating against the quirkless. As All Might made the man beg for his, well, life and career. As All Might made sure that guy never worked again. After that, as Izuku and Octavia both went back to hell after, well, getting the autograph of All Might. As Izuku and Octavia would arrive in hell, the father of, well, Octavia would be scared out of his goddamn mind, wondering where his little girl was for the past 6 hours, as she would explain that she met All Might as she didn't really explain the guy who almost killed because if she told her father that the fact that she almost got murdered, I guarantee it for a fact he would be on a stake by the end of the day, or even in a second, because her father would rival All Might in his prime at 100% without even trying or even lifting a finger. Stolas is a madman of power. As Izuku and Octavia would both arrive at their house, where they live with Stolas because the bitch of a wife decided to leave. So Gucci on that one. As Izuku and Octavia both arrived in their room, as they relaxed until the next day arrived. As Izuku went to school for the first time after the events of, well, you know. As Izuku arrived to his first class of high school, he realized when he first got in that no one really cared. What quirk do you have? No one showed it off. No one really cared, all being egotistical. He thought it was just a heist at middle school, which he should ask Stolas or the fellow imp husband to try and figure out what was actually behind that school and what was running it in the shadows to make it so awful as it was. So Izuku would make it a plan to actually go revisit that school after he goes talks to Stolas, Luna and Octavia tonight, as Izuku would go for the rest of his school. But there's a big difference here. Instead of him not making friends, he makes quite plenty of them. He makes around about 15 to 12, or 12 to 15 if you think about it. With these numbers in mind, Izuku would wonder if Octavia would like to come to the same school as him, and to come in as a transfer student, which she might as well do, Izuku thought. As Izuku would arrive back in Hell, as he would finally shut the portal behind him. Whoever would think in their own naked eye he would think he already had a teleportation quirk, but you would be dead wrong. As Izuku would reach, he would reach Octavia's room / his room. As Izuku and Octavia both sat there and had a conversation for hours on end, until they finally went to Stolas' room and explained to him that they want to go with Izuku to the human world to go study. As Stolas would stare at Octavia like she had a third head or something at the time. As Stolas would look again, as Octavia only showed puppy eyes or owl eyes of the cuteness at that point, as Stolas would have to give in, as Stolas would finally let Octavia attain to a human school. As Izuku and Stolas both got her registered into the human booklet as a, owl mutation quirk. That didn't take too long. A couple of cocaine here and there, a couple of spells, and voila, you've got a brainwashed, Pervikill. As Izuku, Octavia both attended their first day of school, but before they even went, Izuku brought it to Stolas' attention that the past school he went to, if he could look into it for him. It looked kind of sketchy the way he was, but I just wondered if you could go visit it for him. Izuku said, "Yeah, sure, Izuku. No problem." As Izuku left with Octavia to their second day of school, it being Octavia's first. Well, as they both arrived at their second first-ish day of school, Octavia would be greeted with Izuku's close friends that he would have made now at school. Octavia would be uncomfortable at first, but the more and more she went throughout the day of the 8-hour day, she got more and more comfortable as it went along. The more that she talked with Izuku's friends in class when the teacher didn't look, she felt excited. She felt like she could do this for the rest of the day. Even the rest of the 3 years she could be there, but she wanted to stay a little bit longer, but today was her only first day. The next day would prove different. As Izuku and Octavia both arrived home. But we're not going to stick with that for long. We're going to switch to Stolas' point of view 5 hours late, 5 hours earlier, before this all kicked off. As we're gonna stick with what we're gonna go with. Stolas and Blitzo both arrived at Izuku's old middle school, as Blitzo would look around the area to see what things are out of the ordinary, until Stolas had the idea to go to the principal's office to quickly see what that principal actually had, as he would go further and further into the bookshelf to see if there was anything on there that was worth seeing, until he came across a certain book that said, Liberation Army? These are the quirk discriminators, huh? They only want power, not just for that, they want to... Those fucking bastards! Stolas said, making the building shake, knowing that his son-to-be was being abused mentally and physically by the Liberation Army to build him into a form of weapon to use, well, not Izuku per se, Bakugo. His ego has grown to the point of him being a chronic murderer psychopath, you would say, but we're not sticking with that for too long, as Stolas would take this book per se and make a copy of it to see what is actually in the side of this book for prior reference. As Izuku, Stolas, and Ovtavia would both arrive back in hell, as Izuku would read the book that Stolas would have been given to him. So, what is this book? Izuku said. Well, this book is about, well, easy enough to say it, Izuku. You were being groomed, you and Bakugo, into believing the Society of the Liberation Army would be the only way the hero society would be blooming, by creating its own destruction with wealth, fame, and fortune. Well, you've heard Bakugo say it many times. I've read your mind, Izuku. It seems that the only way for the actual people to blossom into, well, heroes is while the Liberation Army, well, thinks that power, money, and fame to crash the society down until they can build it back up into their own.
Hey, quit fapping.